it's important for me to maintain a certain continuity and consistency in my work, which I know sounds terribly serious.
Billy Squier, a famous rock star, has entertained fans for years with songs like The Stroke and Lonely as the Night. Now, at 74 years old, he is finally talking about what made him stop making music. After a successful career, he is sharing his personal experiences and the challenges he faced in the music industry. So, sit back and find out why Billy Squier decided to leave the spotlight. Billy Squier is a rock star who ruled the early 1980s. He wasn't just a singer. He played guitar, wrote songs, and created music that blended hard rock with catchy tunes. His songs had a powerful energy that made people want to sing along, dance, and feel the music deep in their bones. In 1981, everything changed for Billy. He released an album called Don't Say No, and it became a massive hit. Songs like The Stroke, Lonely as the Night, and My Kinda Lover were played on the radio constantly. People couldn't get enough of his sound. His concerts were exciting. Huge crowds, flashing lights, and roaring guitars filled stadiums. Then, MTV arrived, a brand new music channel that showed videos all day. Billy Squier's music videos were played again and again, making him even more famous. He was on top of the world, but success can be fragile. In 1984, Billy released a video for his song, Rock Me Tonight. It was supposed to be fun and exciting, but something about it didn't sit right with his fans. He danced around in a way that some people found strange, and instead of making him look cool, the video made people take him less seriously. Almost overnight, his popularity started to slip. His albums after that didn't sell as well, and the world seemed to move on. Even though Billy wasn't a big star anymore, his music never disappeared. In fact, it found a new life in an unexpected place: hip-hop. His song, The Big Beat, had a drum sound so strong and catchy that rappers and producers started using it in their own songs. Artists like Run DMC, Alicia Keys, and Jay-Z borrowed pieces of his music to make something fresh. Even Eminem used The Stroke in his song Berserk. Billy Squier may not record new music often, but did he ever stop playing? Does he still perform? And what role did his early life in the man he would later become? Billy Squier was born in Wellesley, Massachusetts, a quiet little town where he spent his childhood. He was the only child in his family, and his parents wanted him to learn music. When he was just 8 years old, they signed him up for piano lessons. At first, Billy followed along, pressing the keys and learning the notes, but after 3 years, he started to lose interest. The piano felt more like a chore than something fun. He wanted to quit, but his grandfather had other ideas. He believed Billy should keep going, so he came up with a plan. He offered Billy money to continue his lessons for a little while longer. Billy agreed, but his heart wasn't really in it. Then something happened that changed everything. One day, a classmate sold Billy a guitar for $90. As soon as he held it in his hands, he felt something special. Unlike the piano, the guitar excited him. He started practicing all the time, learning how to make different sounds and play songs. The more he played, the more he fell in love with music. It didn't take long before he wanted to play with other people. At just 14 years old, he formed his first band, the Reltneys. It was a small band, just kids playing together. But for Billy, it was the beginning of something much bigger. As he grew older, Billy's passion for music only got stronger. One day, he discovered the band John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, and their music hit him like a bolt of lightning. It was raw, powerful, and full of energy. He realized that music wasn't just something to play for fun. It could be something real, something to live for. From that moment on, Billy knew he wanted to take rock and roll seriously. In 1968, Billy got his first real taste of life as a musician. He performed in public for the very first time at a nightclub in Boston called the Psychedelic Supermarket. It was an exciting place where famous bands came to play. While he was there, he got to see Eric Clapton and his band Cream perform live. Watching them on stage was a life-changing experience. The lights, the sound, the energy of the crowd, it was everything Billy dreamed of. He knew he wanted to be up there, playing his own music, making people feel the way he felt that night. Determined to keep going, Billy formed a new band with a school friend. They called themselves Magic Terry and the Universe. He kept playing and experimenting with different sounds. In the early 1970s, he moved from band to band, searching for the right fit. He played in the group Kix, where he met Jerry Nolan, a drummer who would later become famous with the New York Dolls. Billy was surrounded by talented musicians, learning from every experience. For a short time in 1971, Billy attended Berklee College of Music in Boston. It was one of the best music schools in the country, and at first, he thought he might become a teacher, but deep inside, he knew that wasn't his path. He didn't want to teach music. He wanted to live it. He wanted to be on stage, playing in front of thousands of people. So he made a bold decision. He left school and moved to New York, chasing his dream. In New York, he joined a band called the Sidewinders. He was getting closer and closer to the big break he had been waiting for. Billy had come a long way from the bored kid who wanted to quit piano. Now, he was a real musician, playing in clubs, meeting people, and working toward his dream of becoming a rock star. It wouldn't happen overnight, but Billy was ready to give it everything he had. His journey was just beginning. What was his career path like? By the mid-19, Billy Squier was ready to take his music career to the next level. He had spent years playing in different bands, learning the ins and outs of rock and roll, and now he was about to step into the real music industry. That chance came when he formed a band called Piper. Piper wasn't just another local rock band. It was something special. They played loud, energetic rock music, and soon they caught the attention of record labels. Before long, they landed a record deal and released their first album, Piper. The response was incredible. Critics loved it, with Circus Magazine even calling it the greatest debut album ever produced by a US rock band. People were starting to take notice of Billy Squier. Piper didn't slow down. They released a second album, Can't Wait, and their popularity continued to grow. Since the band was managed by the same team that handled Kiss, they got the incredible opportunity to open for Kiss on their 1977 tour. This was a huge deal. Kiss was one of the biggest bands in the world, and playing in front of their fans gave Piper major exposure. The highlight of the tour was performing at Madison Square Garden in New York City, one of the most famous arenas in the world. For Billy, standing on that stage in front of a sold-out crowd was a dream come true. But even with all this success, something wasn't quite right. Piper was doing well, but Billy wanted more control over his music. He had been the main songwriter and frontman, but he had bigger ideas. Ideas that he could only bring to life as a solo artist. So after some time, Piper broke up, and Billy Squier set out on his own. In 1979, he signed a solo deal with Capitol Records. This was his big chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. He immediately got to work on his first solo album, The Tale of the Tape, which came out in the spring of the next year. At first, the album didn't seem like a huge hit. It reached the Billboard album chart, but only peaked at number 169. That wasn't a great ranking, but it was something. More importantly, the album started getting radio play, which meant people were hearing Billy's music. Songs like You Should Be High Love and The Big Beat weren't chart-topping hits, but they got enough attention to help build his name. Even though The Tale of the Tape wasn't a blockbuster, it gave Billy Squier momentum. People in the industry were starting to recognize his talent, and his music was reaching more listeners. He had built a solid foundation, and he was about to take the next big step that would make him a rock star. Billy also put together a powerful backing band, featuring drummer Bobby Chonard, keyboardist Alan St. John, guitarist Kerry Sheriff, and bassist Mark Clark, who had played with big bands like Uriah Heep and Rainbow. With this talented group behind him, Billy Squier was ready for what came next. The stage was set. He had the experience, the record deal, and the band. All he needed was the right album to launch him into rock and roll history, and that moment was just around the corner. In 1980, Billy Squier was on his way up. He had just finished a summer tour with Alice Cooper, which gave him more exposure and experience. Now, he was ready to make his next album, one that would define his career. He had big ideas, but he needed the right producer to bring them to life. Squier reached out to Brian May, the legendary guitarist of Queen, and asked if he would produce the album. Unfortunately, Brian was too busy, but he didn't leave Billy empty-handed. Instead, he recommended Reinhold Mack, the producer who had worked on Queen's recent hit album, The Game. Taking May's advice, Billy teamed up with Mack, and together, they created Don't Say No, the album that would make Billy Squier a rock star. Released in 1981, Don't Say No was a game changer. The album got amazing reviews, and more importantly, it produced several hit songs that took over the radio and MTV. The biggest hit was The Stroke, a hard-hitting anthem that became Billy's breakthrough single. It climbed into the top 20 in the US and became a huge success in Australia, Canada, and Britain, where it was his only charting song. The catchy beat and bold lyrics made it an instant classic. But the success didn't stop there. In the Dark and My Kinda Lover also became hits, proving that Billy wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Another song, Lonely as the Night, wasn't officially released as a single, but it still became one of his most popular songs, getting tons of radio play. In Britain, it was even included as the B-side for In the Dark. This was also the era of MTV, a new television channel that played music videos all day long. Billy's videos, which focused on his energetic performances, got a lot of airtime. Thanks to MTV, even more people discovered his music, and his fan base grew rapidly. The album was a massive success. It peaked at number 1, 5 on the Billboard 200, and stayed on the charts for over 2 years, eventually selling over 4 million copies in the US alone. Don't Say No became Billy Squier's most successful album and cemented his place in rock history. Billy Squier was known for being a perfectionist, and that sometimes led to creative clashes. After some disagreements with Reinhold Mack, the two decided to part ways. Despite this, Billy moved forward with his next album, determined to keep his momentum going. The following day, he released Emotions in Motion, his third album. While it didn't quite match the sales of Don't Say No, it was still a major success. The album also reached number 5 in the US and Canada and sold around 3 million copies. It produced 2 big hits, Emotions in Motion and Everybody Wants You. The latter became a massive rock anthem and gave Billy his first number 1 hit on the mainstream rock chart, where it held the top spot for 6 weeks, longer than any other rock song that year. Billy's growing success led to even bigger opportunities. During the Emotions in Motion tour, he opened for Queen on their Hot Space tour in North America. Playing alongside one of the biggest rock bands in the world was another huge step in his career. But soon, Billy Squier was no longer just an opening act. He was the headliner. For the first time, he led his own tour, proving that he had reached true rock star status. His opening act was a young British band called Def Leppard, who were just starting to gain popularity. Billy's tour helped introduce Def Leppard to American audiences, and soon after, they became one of the biggest rock bands of the decade with their breakthrough album, Pyromania. By the early 1980s, Billy Squier had achieved everything he had worked for. He had hit records, sold out concerts, and millions of fans. He was at the peak of his career, but as the years went on, things would take an unexpected turn. For now, though, Billy Squier was one of the biggest names in rock, and his music was everywhere. But what's next for him? By 1983, Billy Squier was at the height of his career. He had just finished his first major headlining arena tour, selling out huge venues and proving that he was one of the biggest rock stars of the time. Now, it was time for his next album, one that could push him even further. Billy wanted to make sure his next album was something special. He planned to work with Robert John "Mutt" Lange, a famous producer known for making big rock records. But there was a problem. Mutt Lange was already busy working with the Cars and was so exhausted afterward that he had to take a break. That meant Billy needed to find someone else. He decided to work with Jim Steinman, the mastermind behind Meat Loaf's legendary album, Bat Out of Hell. Billy admired that album, calling it the most passionate and exciting rock record of their time. He believed Steinman could bring a fresh and dramatic energy to his music. Steinman was excited about the project and got along well with Billy and his band. However, unlike his usual work, Steinman didn't take full creative control. He had a smaller role than expected in the studio. Still, his influence could be felt in the album's new keyboard-heavy sound, which was different from Billy's usual guitar-driven rock style. Released in July 1984, Signs of Life arrived at the perfect time. Billy Squier was on top of the rock world, and expectations were high. The album was a success, earning platinum certification, meaning it sold over 1 million copies, just like his previous 2 albums. The biggest hit from the album was Rock Me Tonight, a song that quickly climbed the charts and became one of Billy's most well-known tracks. Another song, All Night Long, also helped drive the album's popularity. But despite the success, Signs of Life also marked the beginning of a major shift in Billy Squier's career, one that would change everything. To promote Rock Me Tonight, Billy filmed a music video directed by Kenny Ortega, who later became famous for choreographing movies like Dirty Dancing and High School Musical. The video showed Billy dancing around a bedroom, wearing a pink tank top, rolling on the floor, and striking dramatic poses. The style was very different from his usual rock and roll image. While some people didn't think much of it at the time, others found it strange and thought it made Billy look less like a rock star and more like a pop artist trying too hard. Years later, the book I Want My MTV called it the worst video of all time. However, Martha Quinn, one of MTV's original video jockeys, said she didn't remember people reacting so negatively to it back then. Even though Billy was still selling albums, something had changed. After the video came out, he stopped selling out concerts. His fan base, which was mostly built around hard rock, seemed to lose interest. Billy blamed the video for damaging his image. He felt betrayed by director Kenny Ortega, claiming he had been misled about how the video would look. Feeling frustrated and angry, Billy fired both of his managers and publicly criticized Ortega. Ortega, however, denied any wrongdoing. It's unclear whether the video was truly to blame or if the change in Billy's musical style also played a role. Either way, Signs of Life was both a success and a turning point. Billy Squier was still a star, but the cracks in his career had started to show. But what seemed like just one bad music video would eventually lead to a decline that Billy would never fully recover from. But he did make a brief comeback. After the controversy surrounding his Rock Me Tonight video, Billy Squier took a step back from the music world. In 1985, he made only a few live appearances and released one new song, Shake Down, which was part of the soundtrack for the movie St. Elmo's Fire. Other than that, he stayed mostly out of the spotlight, taking time to regroup and plan his next move. For his next album, Billy teamed up with Peter Collins, a British producer known for working with artists like Nick Kershaw, Gary Moore, and Rush. The next year, he released his fifth album, Enough Is Enough. He hoped it would bring him back to the top, but things didn't go as planned. Even though the album was well crafted, it failed to sell in large numbers. It only sold about 300,000 copies, a big drop compared to his earlier multi-million selling records. The album did have one standout song, Love Is the Hero, featuring Freddie Mercury of Queen on backing vocals. Mercury also helped co-write and arrange another song on the album, Lady with a Tenor Sax. But despite the connection with a rock legend, the album didn't take off. To make things worse, Billy did not go on tour to promote the album. Without a tour, it was even harder for him to rebuild his audience. Billy didn't give up. He spent the next 3 years carefully working on his sixth album, Here and Now, which came out in 1989. The album performed slightly better than his last one, but still fell short of his past success. It peaked at number 1, 64 on the charts, and again sold around 300,000 copies. However, it gave Billy a small comeback hit, the song, Don't Say You Love Me. This song became his last ever song to make it onto the Billboard Hot 100, reaching number 58. It also did well on rock radio, making it to number 4 on the mainstream rock chart. While Here and Now didn't make Billy a superstar again, it showed that he still had some loyal fans who wanted to hear his music. By the early 1990s, rock music was changing. Bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden were leading the new grunge movement, which made the polished arena rock style of the 1980s seem outdated. Billy's next album, Creatures of Habit, came out in 1991. Unfortunately, it didn't connect with the new generation of rock fans. Many people thought the album lacked excitement and sounded too polished for the time. It only reached number 117 on the album charts, making it Billy's lowest charting album since his debut. However, it did produce 2 rock radio hits. She Goes Down, which became Billy's last song to reach the top 5 on the mainstream rock charts, and Facts of Life, another song that got some airplay. Even though the album wasn't a huge success, Billy went on tour to support it, hoping to keep his career alive. After 2 years, Billy Squier released his last album with Capitol Records, called Tell the Truth. He worked with different musicians on each track, trying to create something fresh. Billy himself believed this album was one of his best. He even compared it to Don't Say No, his most successful record, but the problem was that Capitol Records didn't promote it. Whether they lost faith in Billy or simply didn't care, they put almost no effort into marketing the album. As a result, the album completely flopped. It didn't even make it onto the charts, and it sold only 37,000 copies in the US, a shocking drop from his earlier millions of sales. After this failure, Billy left Capitol Records, ending his partnership with the label that had once made him a superstar. For 80 years, Billy Squier tried to rebuild his career. He worked with great producers, collaborated with legends like Freddie Mercury, and even had a few rock radio hits. But despite his efforts, his albums never reached the success of his early 1980s work. By the time Tell the Truth failed, it was clear that Billy's time as a mainstream rock star was over. Though he continued to perform occasionally, he never returned to the top of the rock world. Even so, his old hits never disappeared. Songs like The Stroke, Lonely as the Night, and Everybody Wants You remained rock radio staples, proving that Billy Squier's music would never truly fade away despite the struggles he faced. Billy Squier's personal life has been just as colorful and interesting as his music career. While he is known for his rock anthems, his life outside of music also shows his adventurous spirit and his desire to give back to the community. In 1985, while he was trying to rebuild his career, Billy decided to do something extraordinary. He hired a helicopter from the Prince of Nepal and offered $10,000 to the helicopter pilots to land him on the summit of Mount Everest. This was an adventurous move, but the pilots turned him down, explaining that it was simply too dangerous to attempt. Even though he didn't make it to the top, this moment showed just how bold and daring Billy could be in his personal life. In 2002, Billy married Nicole Schoen, a German professional soccer player. Together, they split their time between two places: a home in Bridgehampton on Long Island and an apartment in the San Remo building on Central Park West in Manhattan, New York City. This gave them the perfect blend of quiet, country life, and the excitement of living in the heart of New York. Billy has always believed in giving back to the community, especially in the places that are important to him. Billy was a dedicated volunteer for the Central Park Conservancy. As of 2016, he had been actively involved for over 17 years, spending his time maintaining 20 acres of the park. Not only did he help take care of the park physically, but he also promoted it through interviews and articles. Billy also showed his support for the Group for the East End, an organization that works on native planting programs on eastern Long Island. His efforts reflected his passion for preserving the natural beauty of the places he loved. Billy Squier's personal life is filled with adventures, love, and a strong commitment to giving back. From his attempt to reach the summit of Mount Everest, to his long-standing work in preserving Central Park and supporting environmental causes, Billy's life has shown to be as interesting as his onstage persona. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.